Collective Awakening podcast,
sharing truth and knowledge in this time of conscious awakening
with Chris and Stephen. Hello friends, and welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast. Absolute pleasure on this episode to welcome Phil Escott. He's a personal trainer, novelist, drummer. He's here to talk about health, well-being, fitness. He's also a co-author of, which I have a copy here, The Red Pill Revolution as well. We find our way to Phil by connecting dots, really, through Jeremy Ayres, Graham Norbury, and many others. And as I said before we began recording, I can't believe it's took us this long actually to get together, but everything in its right time. Welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast, Phil. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for asking me. It's always fun to blather on about this sort of thing. So yeah, it's a pleasure.
Well, when I say everything in its right time, I really feel it is, because I can't personally look back on another time where people are talking in any groups that you get together in life, and the subject of health and well-being will come up in some shape or form at this moment in time. People are trying to find the way through. They are discussing things from every angle, and particularly when we talk about diet and coming on your journey as well. And that's where I'd like to start, on your sort of journey that you found yourself through being able to reverse arthritis, through going on that journey of the plant-based, the vegan diet, and finding your way now to the carnivore diet, which I'm really interested to know more about today.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's been a long journey for me, because I've been interested in all of this sort of thing since probably 1980. I'm pretty old now. I'm just coming up to my birthday this month, and it's 63. And I think, where has all that time gone? It's amazing. I still look in the mirror and I expect to see, some young guy with dreadlocks, how I was for like 30 odd years. But yeah, it's been a funny old journey, because I started off really with more of the sort of consciousness thing and being interested in yoga and meditation, and, leading up to that with enormous heroic experiments with hallucinogenics and that kind of thing, as we all did back then. And of course, the spiritual side often leads you into the plant-based thing. No one's ever going to get enlightened when they eat meat, and it causes cancer, and it's, poor animals and all that kind of thing. And yeah, so I went plant-based, and that was probably 1980 or so, I should think, with the old what's it called, macrobiotic stuff, where you're eating brown rice and lentils, and and it's just constant farting, basically. And you think, well, why didn't I realize that is the first thing, or one of the first things, where the gut is complaining? But anyway, then 1986, I moved up here to Skelmersdale to be part of the Transcendental Meditation movement. And that was very sort of plant-based focused, Indian vegetarian cooking of rice and dal did nothing to stop the constant gas. And then I started to notice quite a load of issues starting, but never connected it with diet. Oh, I'm just getting old. I thought, yeah, 24 years old. Come on, really not getting that old. And sort of it's niggling issues with joints, sacroiliac joints, mostly at the bottom of the spine. I thought maybe it's just that I'm sitting in lotus too long every day and doing that silly bouncing around on your ass that the TM people do. The flying, the yogic flying, hilarious stuff when I look back. But yeah, that started. And then early 90s, it got into my wrist. And I remember, at gigs, because I'm a drummer, and I have my T-shirt on here that I wear to annoy Daz in the Daz band. It actually says the tempo is what I say it is. So yeah, and I started to notice that I would have to put my my wrist into the ice bucket in between sets, and it was starting to hurt. And it didn't get diagnosed right. It got diagnosed as Kienbock's disease, of avascular necrosis, crumbling of the lunate bone, which it wasn't. And I'm glad that it wasn't diagnosed as psoriatic arthritis back then, because otherwise I'd probably have taken their deadly drugs. But yeah, and then late 90s, I took over a gym in Skelmersdale and ran that. And my body was crying out for more protein. So I started eating eggs and chicken breasts and things like that, typical sort of bodybuilder fare. And I got pretty big. I never really understood how to get lean, though, because I was still eating a load of carbohydrates with it and watching calories. And when calories don't even exist, actually, but won't get into that. It's just a measurement of heat. It's absolute nonsense. But I was getting a lot of niggling stuff as well. But however much cardio I did, just riding mountain bikes every day, writing for the magazines, the mountain bike mags, training all the time, never got lean. And then through the 2000s, I just kind of gave up. I was still pretty much plant-based. I call most diets plant-based. Even a regular SAD diet, you know, standard American diet, whatever they call it, is well, it's everywhere now, isn't it? But that's still plant-based. You know, you go down to McDonald's and you get a bun, you know, all the horrible grains. You get the fries that are, you know, all the glycoalkaloids in potatoes, and then that's fried in seed oils, which was invented as an engine lubricant, a machine lubricant. It's not food. And there's a load of other chemicals in there, and you get a big double-sized Coca-Cola, and they blame the problem on that little thin strip of meat in between the bun. I don't think so. Every diet out there pretty much is plant-based, but I was sort of mostly sort of lacto-ovo vegetarian through the 2000s and ended up a bit of a fat bastard. And then it all fell apart in 2010 when the joints started blowing up, both ankles, knee, and then back into the wrist, then back and everywhere. Sort of 30 odd joints were affected. And so I thought, right, I'm going to have to go even more plant-based to cure it, because that's the purest thing. You know, I'd written a book with a load of plant-based references back in the mid-90s. So I went vegan. That didn't help. And then I went raw vegan with a load of spinach smoothies. I thought, there's nothing as healthy as that. You know, let's have the spinach smoothies. And I didn't realize that I was really poisoning myself with the amount of oxalates in spinach. So often when you give up that stuff is the time when the body starts dumping oxalates. And so when I did finally decide, no, I need to reintroduce fatty meat and I need to go keto, you know, get into a ketogenic diet. Then 3 months into that, I ended up with kidney stones. And that's because the body was releasing the oxalates from the massive amount of poisoning that I'd done with the spinach smoothies. So anyway, then I finally got into a state where I was a whole load better by about 2013. I could have done it in 3 months if I'd have known what I know now, but it took me about 3 years. And at the end of that time, I wrote my book, which was called Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, which is sort of first third of it about all the struggles with the medical system. The second part about learning about diet and what actually really helped, and other things. It's not just diet. And then the third part, more of the whole spiritual side of it and sort of emotional balancing and that kind of thing. But it wasn't until another couple of years later, 2015, that I just thought, well, I feel better when on the days where I don't have that healthy veg with the meat. And so I'm just going to stop eating it. I'm sick of it. It's just so much simpler to just cook meat. So I went fully carnivore about 2015. So yeah, this is my 10th year carnivore. I'm still waiting for the heart disease. I'm still waiting for the cancer and the scurvy, because of course we get no vitamin C. We actually do. And it's incredible. So now I do I mostly the money I make is doing consults for people with autoimmunity all over the world, and see the most amazing reversals of all kinds of things. Cancer as well, which you're not allowed to speak about because you end up face down in a swimming pool if you suggest that you might have a solution to that. And it's not really rocket science. You can see on my YouTube channel, my mother's breast cancer reversing on this. And we've seen loads of other reversals as well, even down to serious things like glioblastomas, which is a bit of a death sentence. You know, the brain tumor, very nasty brain tumor. My friend Andrew Scarborough does a lot of interviews on that, and it's basically, you know, you've got 3 months and that's it. You're in trouble. You're going to die. And here's Andrew, 11 years on, absolutely fine, looks in his mid-20s, and he's 40 or so. And yeah, we just see amazing things. So I'd just like to say at this point that I don't really think it should be called the carnivore diet. It should be called the natural human species appropriate diet, because that's what we've eaten largely for millennia. However we got here, well, I don't believe in the Darwinian thing. Did we get seeded here by the Anunnaki? I don't know, but we've been here a long time and we've eaten mostly meat. And the tribes do now, and they mostly meat, 90 to 100% meat, depending on latitude and season. And they don't have any of our issues. And no, they don't die young. And when they do get old, they very often get very old, like way over 100, and they've still got all their faculties. Their bodies work perfectly, and they're dancing with the tribe. So it is our species appropriate diet. And, however many vegans send me death threats on my YouTube channel and claim otherwise, because I really do get some angry one. In fact, I had an angry one on my Substack just this morning. She pops up now and again to really lecture me on the proper human diet, which is fruit only. No, it isn't. I tried the fruit thing after during my raw vegan phase, and all it did was take the enamel off my teeth and leave me with sort of emaciated and with absolute brain fog. So no, it isn't our species appropriate diet. This is what we eat. It's meat. We are facultative carnivores, and that's it. That's why it's so magical, really.
Yeah, and I could really resonate with the few things you said there, and I suppose you mentioned it. It's kind of reversing our thinking as well, our programming of this is what a meal should look like, and oh my goodness, I can't possibly have anything without some vegetables on the plate. And I should imagine, well, I'm experiencing this at the moment. It takes a bit of doing, because your brain is telling you that something should be on there. And also the other part to my question is really I have seen this, and I've experienced a bit in the, if we want to call it the holistic, the spiritual movement, whichever we want to put a name on it, of feeling that going plant-based is some kind of part of your evolution. And that's something very quickly I deprogrammed myself out of through inner work, really. And I thought, no, that's an illusion within itself. So when you're working with people one-to-one, it is a big part of it, reversing that way of thinking, really. And it's been mentioned by a few people that as we see the world, actually, it's the other way around. It's reversing everything.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, when people come to me for consults, they generally found my channel or something of mine, or seen another podcast or something. So they know what they're getting into. But occasionally, you have this this thing where you're sort of talking to a vegan maybe, and you can say all this stuff like, you've got to get all the traumas released. You've got to do beautiful, yeah, and you work on yourself with that, with EFT, with stuff like that. Wonderful stuff, yeah. And then you absolutely get the circadian stuff sorted. Get out into the sun, in the morning. Get out into the sunrise. Get the melatonin produced to release at night. Sort out the light in your house. Get grounded. All of that. Oh yeah, beautiful. This is great. And then eat a steak. Fuck off. It's like then you're gone. Then there's like 3 months deprogramming. Because we've been told this all the time. But on the subject of vegetables, I mean, I think most people are realizing that grains are not that great. Seed oils are absolutely disgusting. But the vegetables are healthy. Well, let's look at vegetables. None of the vegetables in the shops even existed more than about 200 years ago. These are all bred from a brassica plant, and they don't really exist. Broccoli, you don't find fields of broccoli and cauliflower in the wild. It doesn't happen. And the tribes wouldn't eat them anyway. They do eat some tubers when the hunt fails. They eat some nuts and berries in the autumn when depending on the latitude, of course. Eat some fruit if it's there, if they can get it before the monkeys, which is unlikely. So nature doesn't give you that kind of abundance of fruit, and we can't survive on it. Nowhere in the world can a human survive on a plant-based diet in the wild. It doesn't happen. So none of these things existed. and they are parts often of the stalks and leaves of plants, which is where they put most of the toxins. It's basic botany. Plants have toxins. Animals have teeth and claws, or they run away, or whatever they have, some kind of defense. But plants, they have toxins, and that's it. It's not anything to be denied. 98% of the plants on the planet will kill you or put you in hospital if you eat them. So who's to say that the ones in the vegetable section of our supermarkets are not also full of toxins? And they are. If you there's a good friend of mine called Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and he's great. He's a proper rock star in the carnivore world at the moment, and he's very well known for a video on YouTube that everybody should watch called "Plants Are Trying to Kill You." It's easy to find. Check it out. I mean, I knew enough about plant toxins to never eat them really for the last 10 years. But that video that came out a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I can't remember, but even that blew even me away. There's 136 known carcinogens in an organic Brussels sprout. There's 60 in the least toxic veg. There's over 100 in mushrooms, and they're not even a plant as such. So, you know, things from the plant kingdom, they are very toxic. And you know, who likes Brussels sprouts really? The occasional nutter likes them, and you know, if they're roasted and they're absolutely covered in butter, they're kind of bearable. But on its own, I say the only use for a Brussels sprout is to wrap up in Quality Street wrappers and give to kids when they're doing the Halloween thing. They're doing trick or treat. That'll put them off. That'll keep them away from bothering you. But you give a kid a Brussels sprout, they'll spit it out. It's bitter. That's how nature tells you that something is poisonous. It's bitter. It doesn't taste good. Fruit tastes good because it's what the part of the plant that it wants you to eat. Because then you go away, you poo somewhere else, and you spread the seeds, and the tree or the bush grows. That's great. But most of us poo in toilets these days. And so it's really not necessary to help the plant out that way. Not that fruit is as toxic as vegetables. It's high in fructose, which does affect the liver very badly. It's high in deuterium, which is an extra isotope on hydrogen, like heavy water. It blocks up the mitochondria, and it stops them functioning properly if you get too much deuterium. And so any lens you look at it through, like meat has no toxins. And then they say, well, what about all the antibiotics and hormones that they're injected with? They're actually injected with far fewer than we think. And the animals have livers that process these things. But wouldn't we all love it if the animals were all grass fed? Absolutely. And that's where I'm with vegans. That factory farming is horrendous. We need to stamp it out. But even that meat has way fewer toxins than any plant food you could ever imagine. And even whether it's injected or whether non-organic, whatever, you know, it's the only toxins in meat are anything that humans put in, and that's not much anyway. So it doesn't have any toxins. And then the vegans will grasp at straws and start to talk about what is it? Aromatic hydrocarbons and things like that. So if you burn the meat on the outside, then you're going to get cancer because these are carcinogenic. Well, if that's the only carcinogen you're taking in, the body can probably easily deal with it if it is a carcinogen in the first place. And burning your toast does the same thing. Mm. And way before cancer was invented by, you know, people feeding other people horrendous stuff and doing all the wrong things in their lifestyle, before the tribes ever had cancer, are you telling me they weren't burning their meat over the fire now and again? And of course you eat those crispy bits, you know, that bit that's left, those sort of burny bits at the bottom of the pan after you cook a steak, they're delicious. They are the cure for vegetarianism on their own. So yeah, there's so many myths built up about it, and all this nonsense in the mainstream as well, that meat causes cancer. Well, these studies showed almost nothing, really, nothing at all. And there was healthy user bias, where people who were going more plant-based were doing more exercise, giving up drinking, giving up smoking, all that kind of thing. And there was still almost no improvement. But the meat that they were counting as meat was things like pepperoni pizza and fried chicken in seed oils and ham sandwiches and stuff. So it's not a grass-fed ruminant animal diet, which is the best thing, which is what I basically only eat beef or lamb, very occasionally pork, chicken and eggs, but they're not ideal, particularly if you've got autoimmunity, because these animals are not fed what they're supposed to be fed. So the fat can be a bit inflammatory. And dairy, I'd have to say, I agree with my friend Dr. Sophia Clements at Paleomedicina, that dairy is actually, well, they put it up there as dangerous as grains and seed oils. And I'll agree with the vegans again, that species in the wild, they don't drink milk past weaning. It's designed to make an animal into a larger animal as quick as possible. It's very hyper palatable. And so you eat too much of it. And it can cause unusual cell replication. So, you know, in that way, and this is heresy, that raw dairy can actually be worse than pasteurized dairy, because raw dairy doesn't give an instant reaction because the lactase is still there to help digest the lactose. So everybody goes, oh, my stomach's great on raw dairy. Yeah, but all the growth factors are still there as well. And they haven't been damaged by the pasteurization. So down the line, that could cause issues. Of course, you know, if somebody comes along with diabetes and eats a load of cheese and bacon and eggs and chicken, they're going to reverse their diabetes easily, because it's just a sugar overload, really, diabetes. It shouldn't even be classed as an illness. It's more like a sort of temporary injury, easily reversible. But it's a little bit more complicated, and you have to go a bit more strict to reverse autoimmunity. And I wish I'd known back then, because, well, maybe I don't, because I've made all the mistakes in the book. And so now I can help people out with their mistakes. You know, I know where these things lead to, even little mistakes. If you're really sick with something like screaming rheumatoid arthritis, if you're eating pork, chicken, dairy and eggs, it's going to be a problem.
It's really interesting, Phil, because last year I noticed inflammation in my joints a lot, and I was doing all sorts of diet changes. And I cut out, and I know sound silly now, I come part from Germany, so which means I'm very high in meat, potatoes. So every lot of it's potatoes. And I cut out potatoes for about 5 months, and I couldn't believe how the inflammation, I cut out rice and pasta and potatoes in particular, and how that, for me, I think when people listening to podcasts, experiment, do these things, feel it for yourself, experiment on it. And I have to say, I was talking to Chris about it last winter. I said, I'm not going to eat any fruit. I'm going to reduce my vegetables. And I'm just saying, on my own personal, how I felt, I didn't get a cold. I wasn't sick. I wasn't ill at all for the first time in most of my life. So for me, sometimes, you look at, you speak to we speak to lots of people, and sometimes people feel overwhelmed. Should we listen to this? Should we listen to that? And that can sometimes get very overwhelmed. But for me, experiment, cut out some of these things, feel it for yourself, see the results within yourself. And my other thing that I wanted to ask you, Phil, was what's your thoughts on fish? What's the fish? Where does the fish come into all this?
Fish is great as long as it's wild caught and it hasn't been fed crap. Because you know that old expression, you are what you eat. I think it's more like you are what you eats. And so, if the animals are healthy, then yeah, that's great. And so if you can get small oily fish, that's great. It shouldn't be a whole part of the diet. It shouldn't be your whole diet, because it's not fatty enough. Once you've taken the carbohydrates out, you really need very, very high fat diet. And that's another thing. We've been told that fat makes you fat and clogs your arteries. It doesn't. It does quite the opposite. I'm 63 and I eat as much as I want, and I eat real fatty food, and I've got abs. I used to train all the time and watch my food and intake, and never got abs ever. And now I can't really get rid of them. I don't know what I'd have to do to get rid of them. Really. I mean, they're not absolutely ripped, but they're there, and I never do anything I hardly train, little bit of body weight stuff every few days, and that's it. I don't do any of this cardio that I did before, nothing. So it's not down to exercise. Abs are made in the kitchen, not in the gym. So yeah, but fish is not fatty enough. It's great. I always recommend it more to people who have some kind of a neuro issue, like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, something like that. It's not an old wives' tale that it's brain food. It's great, and those omega 3s they get across the blood-brain barrier, and yeah, it's very nourishing for the brain and for the nervous system. Yeah, very good stuff. Yeah, so yeah, just eat fatty meat and have a little bit of fish now and again. I find it's like a vegetable, you know, on a carnivore diet. Fish is your side dish. It's your starter, something like that. You know, but base most of it on fatty beef and lamb. But lamb has really high omega 3s as well, higher than beef. So if you're eating good, and I'm just thinking about it actually, I haven't eaten today, and that's another thing. You don't really eat that often. I eat once or twice a day, and I'm just remembering some lamb chops I've got in the fridge, and so I'm going to eat those later on, a whole load of them. And they're almost perfect because they're really high fat. You know, even a ribeye steak is not really high enough fat, particularly when you're healing the gut. You need to go even higher fat, really high fat. Like a third fat to 2/3 lean meat on the plate is the kind of paleomedicina ratio, and that is absolutely magical for healing the gut, which is the root of autoimmunity. Although I have to say that autoimmunity doesn't exist.
What would you say it is then? Autoimmunity? What is it? A symptom of our processed food that we're eating that is creating that in the body? But what's your thoughts on that then?
Well, you know, if you've got something or some autoimmune condition, as they call them, you'll go to a rheumatologist or endocrinologist or wherever you land up, depending on which body part is affected. It's all the same thing. And they say, yeah, well, your body's attacking itself and we don't know why. Come on, our bodies don't do that. Our bodies are wiser than that. They don't attack themselves. So that's their theory. It's attacking itself. We don't know why. You have to take these drugs to block the inflammatory pathways. Now, sometimes you get lucky and it blocks the pathways for a bit and you get a bit of a relief from pain, but very often you don't. And at the same time, these horrible sort of chemo hand-me-down drugs are detaching your retina, blowing your liver up, all this kind of thing. And the last thing you really want to do is to stop inflammation. Now, that's going to be an awful thing to hear for somebody who's in terrible pain, but the body is clearing toxins. That's what inflammation's for. If you don't allow the body to do that, obviously it becomes unbearable after a while. So you end up getting forced into the medical system, and that's where their repeat business comes from. It's criminal. It's a criminal system.
Yeah.
So Natasha Campbell McBride was on my podcast, who wrote the GAPS diet and all of that. Just absolute genius. She's great. And I asked her one question: what is autoimmunity? I had a load of questions for her, and she went on for a brilliant 20 minutes. You can see it on my Red Pill Buddhas one on my YouTube channel or wherever. And anyone with autoimmunity, go listen to Natasha talking about that. It's absolutely fantastic. But she was saying, don't shut down the inflammatory pathways. You need these. There's no such thing as bad inflammation. So then what's happening? Well, the other theory is molecular mimicry. So it all comes from a leaky gut. Undigested proteins get through into the bloodstream. The body develops antibodies against them. And then people say, well, then some of those molecular structures are similar to certain parts of the body. So the body gets confused and starts attacking that part of the body. Nah, it's better. It's a better theory than the standard one, because at least they say it's to do with leaky gut and you need to heal the gut. However, and at our recent event in Spain, my talk was about this, that I don't believe in autoimmunity really. It's clear the body clearing toxins, clearing undigested proteins, it's clearing oxalate crystals out of joints, it's all of this sort of thing the body is doing. But I didn't figure out one thing. And then the doctors who were there, I thought, you know, maybe they'll disagree with me. And then Anthony got up, Anthony Chafee, and he gave his talk and he said exactly the same thing, but he came up with an amazing thing that I hadn't realized. When you get these undigested proteins through into the bloodstream, the body creates antibodies against them. But when the gut's healed and the body's finished clearing the toxins, there's no more inflammation, but we've still got the antibodies. So if the body was confused and attacking those tissues, it would carry on indefinitely, right? But it doesn't, because the toxins are no longer there. So autoimmunity doesn't exist. It's just the body clearing toxins. And that's even what a cold and a flu is, and whatever they pretend COVID is. It's just it's a detox of the body, and this is something that creates a whole new outlook on medicine, because it's not repeat business. Because then you're telling my business model is crap. I'll do 1 to 3 consults with people and they're sorted. You tell people how to heal themselves and they go away and do it. I don't have, I don't have that thing. Even naturopaths and things like that don't quite get to it. You go to one of them. Some of them are great, but you go to one of them and generally you pay for the consult and then you get more and more consults. And then every time you come out with sort of 50 to 100 or 200 quid's worth of supplements that you never end up taking because they don't work anyway, because they're not bioavailable and they keep the gut leaky anyway. So that's the next step from the medical system. Oh, let's go natural, go to a naturopath. Sorry, naturopaths, you're not getting to the root cause of it. It really is that simple. Take away. I have a course out there, an autoimmunity course online. It's a 30 video thing. It's called the subtraction method, because for me, it's all about subtraction. There's a lovely analogy I like to use, which is if you're sitting on a pin, just don't take an aspirin to get rid of the pain. Get off the fucking pin, right? So, you take all the stuff away that's causing these issues. The crap food, the artificial light, the EMF, the emotional issues, you take all those away and the body has all those healing pathways to sort itself out. It'll mop up cancer really quick. If you get it right, if somebody gets it right and takes away all the things that were causing their specific cancer, which can be a different balance of roughly the same things. It's not all the same for everybody, but you get rid of all the major things of that and the cancer reverses very quick. You see tumors disappearing really quick. The body knows what it's doing. It goes into those areas where there's mitochondrial disruption and a load of toxins, a load of deuterium, that kind of thing. And it will sort of compartmentalize, it'll encapsulate that area to stop it spreading. And then eventually it does spread and then they encapsulate it somewhere else. And this is called a metastatic cancer. But when you see these tumors, how fast they can actually reverse when people get things right, it's beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. And people will be saying, oh, you can do that on vegan diets and juicing and all of that. We've seen reversals. And yes, you do see reversals, but it's because it's basically a fast. You want to get rid of cancer as quick as possible. You do an 11-day dry fast, no food, no water. That'll blow it up more than likely. It'll do it a bit slower on a high-fat carnivore diet. But, if you're not putting any of those things in that cause the issues in the first place, the trouble is with the juicing and the Gerson therapy and the fasting, that kind of thing, the plant-based juicing thing, is that you can get remission initially, but then usually it comes back later, often even worse, just like it does after chemo. And then you also get the problem because people are malnourished, they're emaciated, they then get a plant toxin build up because they're probably doing a load of spinach smoothies and stuff. And so it doesn't really work. But you touched on something earlier, Stephen, like how do people know that I'm not bullshitting here? And that how do you sort through all the conflicting information out there?
Yeah.
And for me, it's really quite simple now. But it confused me for ages. Even when I'd studied diet for like 30 years and written a book on it and on Ayurvedic medicine and diet and exercise. The exercise bit was okay, but the rest of it was rubbish. I had to go back into the book and change it,
Yeah.
And so vegans say, you never wrote a book on that because they go and find it. It's not like that anymore. No, it really was when I wrote it, but I went and redid the diet section because it was nonsense. So yeah, there's all this conflicting information. Oh yeah, you need this, you need that, you need these smoothies, you need whatever, you need grains, you need fiber. Fiber also is something that we need precisely 0 of. It causes all the problems it's said to cure, rips the gut to bits. You get onto a high-fat carnivore diet, you're fine. People always ask 2 things, don't they? They ask for carnivores, what do you have for breakfast? And how do you ever have a poo? I say, yeah, I say, well, I haven't had a poo for 10 years now. I just can't, I can't be bothered. No, it's like perfect, digestion and elimination. You keep the fats up, you have perfect time with your bottom, but you don't if you're taking a load of fiber. But anyway, how do you know if all this is true? Well, stop studying diet gurus. Don't listen to any of them. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone. Go and look at anthropology, and go and look at plant toxins, and go and look at deuterium. And you study those three things, and then you'll say, I understand what a human eats. Because this is how we've always eaten. We didn't have any of these problems. What would anyone do with an animal? Say you find an animal stranded somewhere or something, you take it home. What are you going to do? You can say, what does this animal eat in the wild, and feed it that? You're not going to feed it Cocoa Pops and quinoa salads or whatever. It's not going to happen, unless you want to kill it pretty quickly. But with humans, it's like you go to the doctor, you go to an oncologist, they don't even ask what you eat.
I know.
I asked rheumatologists, does diet have anything to do with it? No, it doesn't. Well, yeah, they'll see somebody giving up bread for a week or something and eating all the rest of the crap, and nothing happened, obviously. And so they go, diet doesn't work. But so many of them are waking up to it now. Also, a good way of seeing who's talking bullshit out there, go and look at the influencers. Go and look at the influencers, like compare vegan influencers to the carnivore docs out there now. I mean, look at Anthony Chaffee. He's a Greek god. He looks incredible. Sean Baker, he's almost as old as me. And he's massive and still sort of breaks world records, and all he eats is meat. There's no confounders there. There's not one piece of broccoli a month that's keeping him healthy, right? It's just down to the meat. And studies are useless as well, because it's all, they go, oh, well, all of this carnivore thing is anecdotal evidence. No, it's not. We've got the whole of human history, and we got hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, on carnivore diet now, reversing everything around the world. Oh, well, you can't believe them. Well, you can, because the epidemiology, the epidemiological studies that they do on diet, on other diets, is relying on people writing down what they ate. Like, how much broccoli did you have 1 year ago? Like, they're just going to lie, aren't they? Because they're going to say, oh, well, I ate a bit more than they actually did. And they probably didn't eat any anyway. They probably just ate McDonald's. So people are probably lying on that. There's too many confounders. And then they go, oh, we've got these amazing results. And where are the studies? Diet studies show that meat causes cancer. No, it doesn't. The studies show nothing. They're funded by the pharma companies, the big food companies, who make big profits off processed plant foods, not grass-fed beef. People keep saying, I'm paid by the meat industry. Which meat industry? I don't mind being paid by the meat industry. Where's my Ferrari? I can't pay the bills. I can't pay the bills sometimes. Nobody's sponsoring me to put out these dangerous lies. But, so where these studies come from, and what I say, it's much easier to talk to vegetarians than vegans. They'll listen to reason. They'll listen to reason about the crop deaths, billions of animals that get killed for these awful crops. Yeah. So there is not a compassionate plant-based diet. My diet is vegan. It kills one animal a year. That is the most compassionate diet there is. Kill one cow a year. There we go. I'm done. But when you talk to people about where these studies actually come from, because a lot of them come from the spiritual and religious side as well, the nonsense about diet, as we mentioned earlier. But when you mention to vegetarians where their diet actually came from, where the theory about the diet, are you familiar with the Seventh-day Adventists and Ellen G. White?
No.
Oh, you're going to love this one. This is great. So this is where the most of the kind of vegetarian thing came from in the West. There was a girl called Ellen G. White, a teenage girl in the 1800s. She was part of the Seventh-day Adventists, and they sort of held her up as a bit of a saint. She came out of a coma, I think, and had these visions, whether she did or not, whether she's lying, I've no idea, that we should all eat a Garden of Eden diet. We should eat this Garden of Eden diet because it reduces sexual desire, because meat inflames sexual desire, and this is evil. So we must eat a plant-based diet of grains and fruits and all that kind of thing. And now, obviously, yes, it can reduce your sex drive because it ruins your hormones. It doesn't always, but it can do. but that was the theory. So anyway, this is from the visions of an 18-year-old girl or thereabouts. Then the family of Ellen G. White adopted this young kid to help with the typesetting of all these nonsense pamphlets and books she produced. And he got pretty brainwashed into this. And he grew up and started a load of cereal companies in the Midwest. And his name was Harvey Kellogg. So he was brainwashed by all of this. Now, Harvey Kellogg was absolutely insane. If you watch a film with Anthony Hopkins called The Road to Wellville, he plays this, and he plays this guy, and he's barking mad. But he's much more mad than was actually put out in that film, because Harvey Kellogg, he never consummated his marriage. I think he adopted a load of kids. He was an advocate of circumcision without anesthetic for both boys and girls. So he's saying, you've got to do this to stop their hands straying anywhere they shouldn't, because this is evil. So basically, next time you walk down a cereal aisle in the supermarket, be sure that you're not seeing the Sunshine Breakfast. You're seeing Harvey Kellogg's anti-masturbation cornflakes. And that's where it's come from. This is the insanity of it. And now the Seventh-day Adventists, they run a load of the dietary organizations in America. They own a load of hospitals and schools. I think they're the biggest educator after the Catholic Church. And this is where the bullshit studies have come from. Does it seem so convincing now? No, it really doesn't, right?
Wow, amazing, Phil. There's so much to think about, and sort of the stuff that it resonates. But I just want to just go a little bit about the actual cooking side of meat, which is quite controversial, and touching upon a bit about the seed oils. So there'll be people out there that will, again, it's conflicting. It's something that I've cut out. I've cut out seed oils completely, and I've seen the massive health benefits behind that. So what would you suggest that we should be cooking our lamb and our beef with? I barbecue. I use charcoal to barbecue out in the garden nearly every day the past couple of months. So what's your thoughts on what we should be using?
Well, a lot of carnivores cover it in butter, cook in butter and cover it in butter to get the fat ratios up. But I did that for the first 4 years of carnivore. And then my missus was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And we were 2019, we were at the first carnivore conference I put on in Spain. And Zofia Clements was there from Paleomedicina, and told that to my missus, you can't even have a molecule of dairy. This is horrendous. You're going to keep those fires burning. You're going to lose your thyroid. You've got to cut it out. And she went, well, yeah, it doesn't mind cutting the plants, but cutting the dairy, that's going to be difficult. Oh, no. And so I said, well, I'll do it with you. I wasn't noticing any issues with the joints, but I had put on some fat, nowhere near what I had before. But it was, I was sort of had a thin sort of half-inch covering or something. And also I had sinus issues, which I put down to the winter and the maybe dry air from the central heating or something. But I cut that out and went with tallow instead of the butter. And so we just used beef fat, basically. And my abs popped out and the sinus issues cleared up. And I thought, hang on, I've done 4 years of butter and a bit of cheese here and there with the meat, which is absolutely delicious, but it is hyperpalatable. It's a mixture of carbs and fats that you never have in nature, except in dairy, a little bit in nuts. But if you have fats, you've got it in an animal. If you have carbs, you've got it in, say, fruit or something. It's never mixed. It doesn't happen. And that ruins our leptin signaling. So it makes things hyperpalatable. Like if you think of any addictive food that you can't stop eating, it's a mixture of carbs and fats. Ice cream, chocolate, crisps, chips, or pizza, all of that kind of thing doesn't happen in nature, never happens in nature. So what I started using was tallow, and that's what most people use now. So what I do is I go down to the local grass-fed place, and we get great big lumps of fatty offcuts, and then you cut it into little bits, put it in a deep dish in the oven, and render it down, and then you get nice little crispy bits, like sort of beef scratchings, if you like, at the end. They're really nice. And you tip the clear liquid into a bowl, and it lasts forever. don't even need to refrigerate it. And so we got a big bowl of it next to the cooker, and so I'll fry a steak in that, or if the steak's not fatty enough, I'll scoop a load of it on afterwards as well. And that's the secret to keeping the fats up, and the best to cook in. So yeah, tallow is your secret weapon. Go and buy your own fat, good grass-fed fat, and make it into tallow, easy as anything, and cook in it.
Yeah, it's interesting as we sort of talk about fats, because whenever I have this discussion, especially the last 12 months with my dad, and I'll say, yeah, I'm going to get back to cooking with like butter and the fats and the dripping, and he said that's what we were eating years ago. And when you look back, people would be eating at one time in how do I feel after I've had this? What does it taste like? Oh, I'm not having that. It's terrible, and it made me feel terrible, so I'm not going to eat that again. So in many ways, I find when you mention this to generations before, they're saying, well, that's what the way we were doing things. I'm really pleased yourself and Stephen brought up about the information, because I felt this a few months ago where I just observed and I thought there's so much information. You could literally go on any platform and look at an argument for one thing and an argument for another. And I thought, well, what separates it all? What do I feel? What do I feel's right for my body? What is my body telling me? Looking around now, we have more vegetables and fruit available probably than ever. And yet there's more disease and unpleasant things going on with the body than probably ever. So when we look at these things in common sense, really, it is telling us something. That's the way I view it. It's almost pulling us that way in this direction. But just for those, say, who are watching this podcast and were saying now, yeah, I've felt this for a while. I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go the carnivore diet. I'm going to go onto this meat. How would you advise people to make a start?
Well, it depends on their gut health, really, and their medical history, their level of inflammation. Because you mentioned there that our grandparents ate, they'd have bread and dripping, right? Which is, animal fats. And they'd do that, and they were okay on some bread, and they were okay on the vegetables. They weren't as healthy as they would have been if they'd have been fully carnivore, but they didn't have the issues that we have. A lot of it down to the fact that everything's sprayed with glyphosate now. So every time you buy anything from the supermarket, you're basically taking in a broad spectrum antibiotic that ruins the gut. So it depends how much we've been damaged, how much we can get away with. I mean, there are a lot of people, if you just cut grains and seed oils, they're pretty much fine. If they're already pretty in robust health. Eat locally and seasonally. Try not to overdo the grains. Cut them out if you can, and things go really well. You see, people say, "Oh, you're very extreme and dogmatic." A carnivore diet is extreme. It's not extreme. It's just basic. Beef and lamb, really fatty beef and lamb, are the only things that we can get now that give us everything we need and nothing we don't. There's no deficiency you'll get. And if you're worried, then a little bit of liver, about a pound of liver a week. That's your vitamin pill. Don't overdo it. You can get hypervitaminosis. Some carnivores have got into trouble with that. But if you just take away the really worst things, depending on your state of health, see, the first heart attack was recorded was like something like 1913 in America. And when was that? That was when the seed oils were coming in, when they were starting off with the Crisco and stuff. Before that, people didn't get heart attacks. It was incredibly rare. Yeah. You see sort of death statistics from the 1800s, and you can see people are dying of infectious things, consumption and all that kind of thing. But heart attacks, no. Cancer, no. Very, very rare. But now it's, they say the biggest killers. Heart disease and cancer, and they say that actually that mistakes and of doctors are the third biggest killer. So Western medicine kills the third most people. I'd say it kills all three, 1, 2, and 3. because it's chemo that kills people with cancer, and it's horrendous dietary advice that kills people with the heart attacks. So they got a 1, 2, 3 for me. So I went off at a tangent. I've forgotten the original question there. Oh yes,
So
how do we start off on carnivore? Well, yeah, it depends where you are. If somebody comes to me with full-on rheumatoid arthritis, they're in terrible pain, yeah, just go carnivore straight away. Go carnivore, beef, lamb, salt and water, proper fat ratios, nothing else, until the gut's healed and you're symptom-free, and then you can reintroduce things. That's not extreme. It's just the best elimination diet, which is safe long-term if you want to try it. Some people can reintroduce things, some people can't. I feel much better when I don't reintroduce things, so I don't. You know, I mean, I'm quite open that I was teetotal for 30 odd years and my liver was trashed. They used to ask me if I was an alcoholic because my liver was so bad. Cysts on the liver, fatty liver, everything. Now I'm carnivore. Yeah, I drink some brandy. My liver results are perfect. The cysts have gone. Everything's gone. And so, you know, I do make those. I make the odd mistake. But to me, a bit of brandy now and again is more fun than broccoli. So if I'm going to make a mistake, it's not going to be broccoli, right? I'm not bothered with that. But yeah, don't drink, guys. I'm just a teenager now. I found it for the first time because I never drank all my life. So, but it doesn't seem to affect it. But yeah, it depends how strict you have to be. And also, yeah, never drink alcohol while you're healing the gut. It keeps the gut leaky, right? Just, you know, so no good, chaps, really. I'm just, you know, I'm a hedonist, as Bart Kay would say, and occasionally we like to make some mistakes. But there are different different things to consider. There are things that you can go through when you first go into the carnivore diet. They could talk about keto flu, which is basically the body not adapting to fats. So it's used to running on carbohydrates. It needs to learn to run on fats, and it takes a while. 30 odd days. If you're athletic, it's going to take longer to get the performance back in athletic side of things. But when you do, fats are a far better energy source, far better than carbohydrates. So then there are some people who will have certain gut issues. You know, they might get the runs for a bit as the microbiome readjusts. They might get what they think is constipation, like they don't have a poo for 3-4 days. But then you say to them, well, do you have any of the bloating and pain? No, not that I used to get when I got constipated with plant foods. Okay, well, it's just that you're producing less waste because everything gets digested with meat. The old myth that it sits there rotting in your colon. There's only one thing that decomposes in your colon and causes problems, and that's plant foods. So meat, no, it doesn't stick in there as long as you're having enough fats, and that tends to pass after a while. Then there's the electrolyte issues where you can get palpitations or twitching and, you know, muscle twitching and things like that. And so just have a shot of a teaspoonful of Celtic sea salt in some water, swill it down, not gone in 20 minutes, do it again. It's simple. I didn't understand these things and ended up hospitalized with such bad palpitations. They thought my heart was giving out when I first went keto. So, oh, well, it's the fault of the keto. No, it wasn't. It was the fault that I didn't understand electrolyte balance. After a while, you don't have to do any of these things. And so it depends. Also, there's another consideration, which is oxalate dumping, which can be quite uncomfortable. Well, excruciatingly agonizing if it takes the form of kidney stones. I've been there. Unbelievable pain. But most people don't form stones. They might get the odd rash or cloudy pee or a few other things, you know, that can be down to oxalate dumping. Sally Norton wrote a book called Toxic Superfoods, which is a great one to look into for plant toxins, particularly oxalates. And I was talking to her about this on my podcast as well a while ago. And because I had a kidney stone in 2022, 8 years after I went carnivore. I was like, what the hell happened there? It was horrendous. I managed to get rid of this one myself and it was not so bad. But and she was saying, yeah, it can take 8 years or so. I'm sorry, it can take decades to clear oxalates properly out of the body, and it comes in waves. So again, it's different for some people who might not be that sick with autoimmunity, but are worried about oxalate dumping. Then there are ways in Sally's book in the last couple of chapters about keeping citrates up, like magnesium citrate, potassium citrate, calcium citrate, lemon juice, things like that can bind to the oxalates and take them out more safely so that they don't cause so many issues. But again, this is supplements. We generally don't need them. So there are a lot of people that say that you should go gradually into it. But I can see the logic in that for some people, but it depends if you're an abstainer or a moderator. You know, some people can go gradually and some people can't. I went gradually only because I didn't understand. If I'd have known, I'd have gone straight in 100%. But I didn't know. And so I was listening to all the conflicting information. Oh, no, you do need a bit of this. You need a bit of fiber. You do need a bit of green vegetables. You know, all this nonsense. And so I went into it gradually just because it took me a while to get the knowledge, which is out there now. All these brilliant carnivore docs out there now, their information is fantastic. So you get all that information now, but you didn't back then. So it took me a while. So, but if somebody comes to me with an autoimmune issue, which is most of the consults I do, I would say just go for it. Just go fatty beef, lamb, salt and water. That's it. And keep on going with that until you have you've got rid of the symptoms, and then go symptom free for a few months, and then try reintroducing one thing at a time if you want to. But by that time, you'll find that your tastes have completely changed. They've really got much more subtle. It's like I used to say, right, it's a pizza day or a Haagen-Dazs day. Yeah, I'm just listening to my body. I just do what I want. This is what I want. No, that's not your body. That's addiction. You know, that stuff. Those things are recreational drugs. They're not food. They hit that dopamine spot. The companies that make them employ addiction specialists to hit that spot. You know, the Pringles ad. Do you remember that? Once you pop, you can't stop. You can't. I mean, Pringles. It's seed oils. It's glycoalkaloids from the potatoes. It's chemicals. It's cancer in a can, and you can't stop. And so yeah. But when you end up carnivore, you eat a steak or a steak and a half or whatever it is, and you've had enough. It tastes really good to start with, and then you've had enough. But you could still eat a whole load of ice cream or something after. The dessert stomach, right? Yeah, leave room for dessert. You don't need to leave room for dessert. You just pile it in there anyway because it's addictive. But your tastes change. And so now I know, I think it's a lamb day. It's a beef day. I might need some oysters. Maybe my body needs some zinc. You know, I might need some fish, so I'll do that. And this is an interesting one actually. When I talk about people how you should go straight into it or not, it's also you've got to think that when you're healing something, not only do you need to heal the gut, but you need the maximum amount of nutrients going in the smallest package. Because even the proteins from beef and lamb early on can go through and cause some inflammation through a leaky gut if they're not digested properly. It won't cause a leaky gut and it will heal up while you're doing it. But any proteins can be an issue. So you want the maximum nutrition without putting so much in. And that is beef, fatty beef with some organ meats, you know, while you're healing. If you're adding other things, you're adding anti-nutrients that block the uptake of the meat that you're having. If you have a steak and a salad, you'll absorb fewer nutrients than you would if you just had the steak. There's no extra nutrients in that salad. They're on paper, but they're wrapped up in indigestible cellulose, which people call fiber or roughage to make it sound good. No, it's indigestible cellulose. We can't digest it. We're not ruminant animals. And even they can't digest it. The bacteria digest it for them, and they run on fats in the end. So, you know, everybody runs on fats, really. We just can't deal with it. It ruins our guts. So that's what you want to be doing. And to illustrate that, there was a study done once, and I know, oh yeah, studies, but there are some that are really quite interesting. They got a load of people, and they wanted to find out how much the zinc levels went up when they ate oysters. So they gave one load of people just oysters, another group of people oysters and black beans, another group of people oysters and tortillas. Now they gave them the same amount of oysters, and the people just eating oysters on their own, the zinc levels shot up. It was great. Oysters and black beans, not much change in the zinc level. Oysters and tortillas, no change in the zinc level. So when people go, oh, I'm going to add some meat, it's not about that. It's about, like Anthony Chaffee says, 95% of the benefits come when you drop the last 5% of the plants. And I can vouch for that with you know, people coming with autoimmunity. But if you're not autoimmune, you don't need to go fully carnivore. I mean, eat local seasonal fruit, if you like, and nuts in the autumn. Eat little bits of things here and there. We ate tubers now and again. It's probably quite ancestral. You can get away with a bit of potatoes, maybe, but then again, how many people actually do that? Because a potato is really not that nice. Potatoes amazing if you mash it with a load of butter. You know, you put butter on a shoe, it's going to taste good, right? But you have like buttery potatoes. I miss that. If I could have buttery potatoes with my meat, I would probably have that, but I can't. And if you do that though, it's hyper palatable. It's a mixture of carbs and fats again. And so you're going to eat too much and you're going to get back in trouble. So theoretically, if people could ease into it and then go to a natural local seasonal diet, but how many people can? We're all sugar addicts. So how many people? I just say rip the Band-Aid off and go carnivore straight away, because most people, if they start having other little bits of things, they'll fall into old addictions. And entertainment is not meant to be in the kitchen. You know, it's entertainment somewhere else. We eat food to live. We don't live to eat, but we do now, because everything is junk food. Look at all these ads on the TV. They're eating this crap, this processed crap, whatever it is in the advert. And they're all young and they haven't got sick yet. So they're all young and they're all jumping around and they're all happy, like this fucking Haribo or something is giving them life energy. I mean, the programming is ridiculous around food. Oh, you know, what am I going to do when I go out and eat? I love it when I go out and eat. I order a steak. And if there's other people having pizza and Coke or whatever, that's their own business. And sometimes they'll say to me, oh, you're going to get a heart attack. And I point out that I'm the only adult sitting around the table who can fit their ass on the chair. I'm absolutely fine. It's going to be okay, you know. And yet they're eating something. I mean, what is an extreme diet? To me, it's eating something that we're not adapted to, and that's 95% of every supermarket. And they tell me I'm extreme for eating only meat that we've eaten forever, and they eat all this stuff that is not identifiable as food. That's an extreme diet to me, the modern diet.
That just seems to be coming back to me. It's just reprogramming the way we think a meal should look and getting out of that. A big thing for me that I have to say I've not fully broke it yet, but I'm hopeful I am on my way, is feeling that I needed something sweet after every meal. A pudding. There needs to be a dessert, even when I was out having a meal. Oh yeah, and you're quite right. We always find room for it, no matter how full we are. I think there's a Peter Case sketch where they're all sort of absolutely overwhelmed and stuffed, and then somebody brings the dessert menu out and they say, yeah, we'll have a look.
Do you remember Monty Python, Mr. Creosote and the wafer in mint? That goes in the end. Brilliant sketch. Yeah.
And it's too true. And I think it's just stepping out of what is considered to be the norm. Absolutely. So the other thing I just wanted to touch on as well is about gluten as well, because a lot of people going gluten-free at the minute and looking at the problems gluten can cause to our system as well. But how do you feel, again, the best ways to go on about that? What's your thoughts about gluten-free produce as well?
I think it's a massive con. I think if you've got IBS or Crohn's or something and they tell you you've got to go gluten-free, if you want to maintain your IBS and Crohn's but pay 3 times as much for a loaf of bread, then go gluten-free. It's ridiculous. It is not even the biggest problem in wheat. There's so many things in there that are a problem. I mean, gluten's a nasty one. It's a nasty protein that rips the gut to bits and causes havoc when it gets through into the bloodstream. But the problem is the grains in the first place. It's not about going gluten-free. They've focused on one thing there, again, so that these bloody food companies can carry on selling this crap at double the price or more than it was before, and say that this is going to be healthy. It's absolutely not healthy. And so, yeah, the gluten-free thing, it's a con. You know how to go gluten-free? Eat nothing but meat, and then you're free of all of that crap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the other thing, just changing the subject a little bit here, but I feel it's very relevant at the minute. And a big thing that's coming about that a lot of people are experimenting with, and I try to stay away from mainstream media the best I can, but occasionally when you're flicking through social media, something crops up, and it's about this the what I'd call the fat jab at the minute that's
How
being
did I know
pushed.
you were going to ask that? I could
Yeah,
see
you
you winding up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, you must be psychic. But and I couldn't believe it yesterday. Not many things get to me on the news programs. I can normally just surf it and go, yeah, no, it is what it is, just bullshit. But we had the one of the biggest touters, Dr. Hillary, there saying about anti-cancer. It's anti-cancer now, and it's anti
I
this, and I
saw
think,
that. I saw
well,
that.
and I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, well, why the hell would we have something that's anti-cancer? Whereas if we're eating the right thing and taking care of our body, we don't need to worry about that. What are your thoughts with this at the minute? And it's something that is very relevant. It's round and about. Somebody knows somebody who's experimented with it, and most of them, only talking about the people I've spoke to, have felt unwell as well from it.
Well, I don't watch any news or anything anymore, but somebody did put that up. Coincidentally, I heard that this morning of Dr. Shillery or Dr. Killery or what they call him now.
Yeah.
I wonder how he's even on TV. He hasn't aged well either. I think it's apart from, you know, eating all that crap and probably taking jabs, he's he's probably incredibly stressed because I don't know. He must be on some kind of payroll. I know people accuse me of it, and it's a cheap shot, really. But that guy must be. He must be, because he's really pushing the jabs. He's pushing all sorts of crap. This Ozempic thing, this fat sort of drugs and whatever, they've got a few of them, haven't they, out now? They're just extremely damaging. I'm terrible at remembering the science, and I've listened to it, and I've heard of all the appalling things it does, but it does terrible things to the body. And you really don't need to do that at all. So what you're doing is, even if it works and it drops some weight, I don't like to think about dropping weight, because if you eat right, you're dropping fat and nothing else. If you do these criminal things like Weight Watchers and Slimming World and that kind of thing, also set up for repeat business, you're losing bone density, you're losing muscle mass, you're losing all sorts, because it's a starvation diet. And these jabs, you're taking in the same toxins, and not only does the jab cause harm itself, but you're taking in the toxins that you were taking before and getting rid of the body's natural way of storing toxins away from vital organs in fat deposits. Again, when we get fat, the body's not working against itself. It's protecting you because it wants those toxins in the fat. If you lose fat too quickly, it's very common. Even the mainstream know that if you lose fat too quickly, people will get kidney stones quite often. And that's because it's releasing oxalates at a rate that the body can't get rid of them safely. And so even the mainstream know that, although when you have kidney stones, the idiots tell you not to eat too much meat because protein harms the kidneys, which is an absolute myth taken from 2 useless rat studies. It just absolute nonsense. We see sort of late stage kidney disease reversed on carnivore. So yeah, it's just, again, it's going against nature. Just if you want to see how many of our ancestors injected themselves with something to lose fat? How many of our ancestors had a blender? How many of our ancestors sat around in the morning going, "What's for breakfast? I wish they'd hurry and invent Weetabix." You know, it doesn't happen. I love the game. It was Anthony Fazy, his name is, I think, and he was on Anthony Chaffee's channel, and he says with his clients, he plays this game of name an animal in the wild that. You know, name an animal in the wild that goes for a jog. Name an animal in the wild that eats the rainbow. Name an animal in the wild that lives under artificial light. You know, name an animal in the wild that wears rubber-soled shoes that stop you being grounded. Name an animal in the wild that goes for a jog. You know, you can kind of relate this back when you don't have any of the science, but you can relate it back. I think the person probably has got the most science about this that I've ever heard is Dr. Jack Kruse. He's unbelievable. I mean, if you listen to a few podcasts with him, it's mind-blowing. You'll understand probably about 10% of it, but it is incredible. He's a beast. It's Kruse. My chat with him, I tried to keep him a little more intelligible on my podcast. So if you put Phil Escott and Jack Kruse, you'll find that. But he's become a mate. He did the foreword to my book. I was really honored about that because I think he's probably got the biggest brain on the planet. But as he says, the lion and the hippo don't need to know any of this stuff. They just do it because they're out in nature. So what we need to do is to have the is to understand a few little tweaks in our life that will fool the body into thinking that it still is in some semblance of nature. So we don't need to go and live in the Himalayas. We don't need to go and live in a jungle. We just need to, like, for example, after this, I've got Iris on the computer, so it's not putting out as much blue light as it normally does. So that's a huge hormonal disruptor. If you've got more than the blue frequency than is in midday sun blasting at you every time you check your phone, in the middle of the night, check your phone, it's midday. Oh, body, it's midday again. You know, that's going to ruin your hormonal cycle. So after this, I'll go out, I'll get some natural light. I'm going to get some sun today. I'm going to, you know, and this other crap that the sun causes cancer as well. That's hilarious, isn't it? That's hilarious.
Well, I find it's everything is always built up slowly, and for a long time now, they've slowly built up that the sun is our enemy. You know, it's going to cause all these problems. I don't use any sort of tanning lotions. I haven't done for years, I think. And I get outside even in the winter. If the sun's out, I'll put my coat on and I'll sit. And because you can feel the energy the sun gives you. It's a source of energy as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they've turned it into a problem with the sunscreens because you put the sunscreen on, it blocks the rays that burn you, but it lets the rays through that might cause some cancer or some problems. So then you end up there way past the body would the time when the body would tell you to go inside. Because what do? You go out in the sun. My missus is from Tanzania, so you can imagine our difference in our sun exposure. If we go on holiday, she's out there all day and I'm like half an hour and I'm like, fuck, I'm back inside again now. And that's fine. You listen to your body. But if you start slathering yourself in sunscreen, you're going to unbalance the frequencies that the sun is supposed to give you. So it's not the fault of the sun. You know, if you burn, put a hat on, put a shirt on, go inside. You've had enough.
Yeah.
Don't slather yourself in this stuff. And you get all these sort of, you know, absolutely lobster colored English people going, you know, on holiday looking absolutely ridiculous. When they're going out there in the midday sun, you want to build up your solar callus again. You go out early in the morning, you get your body. And that's something I've got to work on, because when I was a kid, I used to go really black in the sun just straight away. We used to go to Jordan a lot, and I'm out in Aqaba, you know, by the Red Sea, and just playing in the sun all day. Nothing happened. Little bit of a burn sometimes. What the hell? That's no big deal. And then you go, if you can take it, it's fine with your body without it, without the sunscreen. And then for 30 years, I just got worse and worse in the sun. I couldn't take it. I had contact lenses. I used to wear shades all the time. You know, I loved my Oakley collection. And I'd wear sunscreen if I did go out. And I hated the sun. I was fat. I was inflamed. And I never went brown anymore. And I've never totally fixed that. My friend Sarah Pugh, who is Dr. Sarah Pugh, she's brilliant. Check her out. You've got to get her on, talking about all the quantum stuff. She's knows all the stuff that Jack knows, but she's more intelligible. She's not so deep in the science. She understands that actually mere mortals have to listen to this sometimes, you know. But she's amazing. But she was telling me, you know, you could get it back. You could, but you'll have to do it every day, every sort of different period of the day, to build up the solar callus again. Because I had my eyes lasered, which is also very dangerous, but I got away with it in 2006. So I don't wear contact lenses. I don't wear any sunglasses anymore. Never. You know, if I do go mountain biking on a downhill, I might flip them down so you don't get a stone in the eye. If I go fishing and I'm climbing a tree to see where the carp are, you know, I'll put some Polaroids on to see through the water. But that's it, you know, then take them off and carry on walking. I don't use them anymore because I realized that having contact lenses and sunglasses for so long, for so many years, ruined my whole melanopsin and how to create the melanin, which is, there are different types. It's not just in your skin, it's through your whole body. And the latest podcast with Jack Kruse talking about melanin and what it does and how you're pretty trashed without it. And I think that probably led to a lot of my problems as well as, the jabs I took when I was a kid. I didn't take many. The things that they've done to me over the years, like, ripping out tonsils and adenoids, the arrogant medical system. Oh, you got a tonsil infection, let's rip your tonsils out. I mean, it's ridiculous. So all of these things that happen can add up to it. But I think not getting the natural light is huge, and people don't understand about that. So yeah, if you're going to wear sunglasses, wear the orange ones and wear them at night. Don't wear sunglasses in the sun. I remember my eyes were so sensitive. I used to, even on cloudy days, I'd put sunglasses on to go and drive somewhere. And now I don't think about it. I never, ever think about putting sunglasses on. I think there are times where you can do it with sort of snow blindness, if you're skiing, something like that, and there's reflected sun as well. Yeah, why not use sunglasses for that? But then take them off when you're sitting out in the sun. For certain uses, they're great. But so you don't have to go and become some sort of ascetic and living in the wild. You can do these things. We have... I don't even wear my blue blockers anymore at night because our house is set up for it. I have Iris Tech on the computer and I just flip it to red at night. The phone's on red and it's on airplane mode, if I'm in bed. We have a screen on the front of the TV that cuts the blue light out. So if anybody watches that in the evening, then we don't get that. And apart from that, the only light in the living room, we've got 3 snakes. We've got a royal python and a corn snake and a boa constrictor. And so I just turn little really dim LEDs in there, and it's sort of facing backwards into the cage. There's just this little red glow from the snakes' cages. It gives them a bit of a sunset as well. And that's it. So we've sort of hacked the house for light. And I'd go into that more. I've got a Substack on that, my Phil Escott Substack. I'll send the guys the links and bung it in underneath. But I've got one on hacking the house or the better night's sleep or whatever. Loads of ideas about that, because even if you're eating a great carnivore diet, you're not going to heal if you're not sleeping properly. And that's down to the circadian stuff.
Yeah, I've said that there is, and we will share all those links to look at all Phil's channel and his videos, because you've touched on that in quite a few of your talks that I've watched as well. And something that I'm a big believer in, I remember my granddad always used to say, if I was feeling unwell or anything, get yourself outside, get some fresh air. Because when we're starved of that, anyone, and you saw this in 2020, if anybody's indoors for a certain amount of time with no natural light, no fresh air, they very, very quickly go downhill, or the mood changes. And what I was surprised about, which seems quite minor with what we talked about, is recently I actually changed the curtains in my bedroom, and I was determined I don't want these blackout curtains. I don't like them. I like the light to come through in the morning. Now, at one time, it would be very hard to find blackout curtains, but now the majority are blackout everywhere you go. And it's actually hard to find curtains that the light comes through. But I'm just going to hand over to Stephen, because I'm aware that I've asked about.
Just for a sec, I'd go with the blackout ones, because there's so much unnatural light out there now. Like, we've got bloody street lamps straight out the back of us. I don't want that coming in. So I'll black it out, but I'm up early and then go outside. First thing I do is to go outside and get the natural light.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't actually consider that. So I suppose we're to be discerning of where you're living, and if you're getting street lamps, things like that outside.
Yeah, but also remember that light that comes through glass is never the full spectrum. So you can't. I mean, if your light is a particle as well as a wave. So leave the windows open, and then natural light can get in. There's a lot of aspects to this that we've been fooled, because you can't tan through glass. It doesn't happen. So you need to get out there. You need to get beyond the glass.
You give me something to ponder on there, Phil.
I think we should be doing another podcast on just the light side, because I think it would be, if you're happy to do that one, Phil.
You do that with Sarah. Do that with Sarah. Get Sarah on. She's amazing. She'll really go into it and blow you away.
Oh, amazing!
I just know what to do, but once you hear the actual science behind it, where Sarah's got far more understanding of that than me, and Sarah will be at our event in August. She's a great friend now, and she's hilarious. She's fantastic. Absolutely love Sarah. She's brilliant. So yeah, get Sarah on. But yeah, come and meet her in August too.
Well, It's been absolutely amazing speaking with you, Phil. Really, so I feel like we've touched on so many different areas, and I really feel that many will find this. I've found the information all very palatable and easily understood. That you can look at it. There's a lot of sense. There's a lot of common sense being spoke of here, and I know that word will get overused sometimes, but I really feel so. But just as we sort of come to the conclusion of this episode, as we called the sort of collective awakening, and we talk about this time of this changing world we live in, as we sort of broaden what we're talking about, how do you see things in the world right now with how we're sort of evolving and all this happening? It's definitely not a boring time to be on the earth. And how would you like to see things move forward, particularly in the health area as well?
Yeah, it's the old Chinese curse, isn't it? May you live in interesting times. And we certainly are. I don't know. The more I learn about it, the more of these layers I uncover, the more I realize I don't know. I just want my latest Substack. I just put it up, edited from something I wrote ages ago, actually, probably 10 years ago, the importance of being wrong. And I think this is really important, because what has the lunacy given us over this COVID thing? It's given us division. It's split up families. It's like, oh, you're a tinfoil hatter conspiracy theorist, granny killer. Oh, you're a sheeple. You're taking all the jabs. Look, we're just people, okay? We are not each other's enemy. And if we've got an enemy, it's the elites who are doing that. I was a co-author on the Red Pill Revolution book, and also the Red Pill Food Revolution book, the one that you showed earlier. And go into it a lot in there of exactly what's happened with the elites over the centuries, really. And I think what is encouraging at the moment is that they're becoming uncovered. People are understanding what's going on, that there are certain families that have run the world pretty much, at least since the Roman Empire. And if you look into the Club of Rome and you look into exactly what's happening with the sort of three cities within cities, you got Washington for the war, you've got London for the banking lunacy and controlling everybody through the money, and you've got the Vatican for controlling people through the religious system and all the brainwashing there. And all three of those are pretty evil. And when you see exactly what's happening and where it's coming from, I think what we can hope for is people to wake up. And then you've just got to say no. If nobody paid their taxes anymore, if nobody bought their shit food, if nobody did anything like that, I mean, I'm making a stand at the moment. I'm probably 20,000 into the council tax, and I've done it right. I think they're leaving me alone, but I'm not going to pay for that when it goes for wars. I'm not going to pay for that when it goes for propaganda that burping and farting cows cause climate change. This absolute utter nonsense that's going on, and we've got to see through it. I think you can see through it at different layers, because there's if you unpeel, it's the layers of an onion. There's a lot of bullshit. I mean, I'm not convinced that viruses even exist. I think that the whole Wuhan thing, gain of function, that they're going, oh, isn't it great? RFK is getting into all the gain of function and blowing Fauci up. And I don't know. I don't know if that's not another psyop, if it's another distraction, a false flag thing to distract from what's actually going on, that there was no virus in the first place because they don't exist as pathogenic little particles flying around, but they need to be ready for the next pandemic, So I don't know. But I think more and more people are getting on a path where they want to find out. Do I think I found the truth? No, I absolutely don't. And I think you should watch out for people who say, I've found the truth about something. Look for people who are continually looking for the truth and continually trying to prove themselves wrong. And that's where I think you've got somebody who's honest. And so the more people who are like that, the fewer there'll be who are arguing with their neighbor or reporting them for not wearing a muzzle or some shit. We've got to get out of that and thinking that we're each other's enemies. We're not.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point there. This thing of separation and literally throwing crap at one another is just not productive, and I see this a lot with people who supposedly think they know better. And
Yeah.
all that keeps coming to me is I kind of avoid people who talk in absolutes all the time. And I think it's about an exchange. What we're doing today is not one podcast I've done where I don't go away and it gives me food for thought.
Mm.
This one included. And I think that's what it's about, being in company where we do challenge each other's views. And that might be triggering, but that's good. That's healthy. For me,
Exactly. Yeah. There's that beautiful meme that I put up in that Substack actually, where there's a guy being loaded into an ambulance, and it says, man in critical condition after hearing slightly differing viewpoint. And it's I've learned some of the most amazing knowledge from people who I've 90% disagreed with and thought that they were barking mad. It's like
100%.
people go, oh, well, you're a flat earther, so I can't possibly say take anything you say seriously. Well, I don't know. I'm not a flat earther. I play in a band with Darren, who runs the Light paper in England. He's amazing, bloody warrior out there for blowing up all this nonsense. And yet he's a flat earther. He's got a great flat earth song as well. It's got great lyrics, a great groove, and I'll play it. I'm not a flat earther. I don't know, because I haven't been up there. Unless you really know, how do you know? Why would you attack somebody for being a flat earther just because you think that it's spherical? Most of the time, most of our history, we thought it was flat. Is this all a simulation? I don't know. I lean more towards that than the globe or the flat earth thing, probably. I think, there are sometimes you see through certain things and you think, hold on a minute, there's glitches in the matrix there. There's some weird things going on. So is it a simulation? I don't know. Are we ever supposed to understand everything? But we're supposed to argue. I mean, everything's happening perfectly and all that sort of spiritual thing. Yeah, great. But it's a lot nicer to get on in the world where not everybody's at their throats, at each other's throats. And if somebody's got a slightly differing viewpoint, I don't get upset with them. They often get upset with me. Vegans go crazy at me. But I think another thing that's important to do at the moment is to start to go to these festivals and things that are coming up, these gatherings, get together with people. It's great doing this online stuff. It's a miracle that we can do this and record it and put it out there. It's great for people. But people need to be together and hugging. People need to be doing everything that they tell us not to do. Yeah. Stay 6 foot apart. Isn't that odd that that's the kind of distance of the aura that goes out from people? Oh, we don't want people mixing that. We don't want, we'll pretend that there's a little demonic particle floating around that, it can't get out the side of muzzles. It can't get you when you're sitting down at a restaurant, but it can get you when you're standing up. What an IQ test. How did anybody not see through this bollocks,
Unbelievable.
So
I mean, even when you look now at our ancestors who would sit around the fire, they would sit, talk and disagree. I think it was something, I think Ricky Gervais said how arrogant is anybody to think that everybody's going to agree with everything you say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. It's great. It's fun.
Yeah, I actually like being wrong.
Yeah,
you learn a lot.
Wrong is great. That's when you learn, and so welcome it. And I just think we need to be getting together. I love these festivals. Daz is putting one on later this month in May. At the end of May, it's the Stand in the Light Festival in the Lake District, and we're playing at that. And he's just done amazingly with that. I mean, what an amazing festival! It reminded me of the early festivals like Stonehenge and things that I used to travel around with the convoy and live in buses and teepees when I was a kid. Like 18 to 22. I just traveled around, and it reminds me of the early days of the festivals, and they're coming together beautifully now. And then our Ancestral Health Festival. Please come along to that, everybody. It's in Rainford in Merseyside, Lancashire-ish, in August, and the link will be below. It's just ancestralhealthfestival.com. But see the speakers, see what's going on. Come and meet these amazing people. Some of the people I've spoken to about here. Sarah Pugh. We've got Nikita Stark talking on birth. We didn't even get into that. I mean, health begins before birth. How healthy is the mother? The crimes that happen in delivery rooms with cesareans and episiotomies, and my God, you hear Nikita talking about that. She's also brilliant, hilarious, great musician as well. We might probably do her track before the Daz band. We'll play that live. She's amazing. And then we got Richard Smith, probably the most knowledgeable person on biochemistry in England, with Stephen Thomas as well, and both of them actually, they're absolutely incredible. They do a lot of channel stuff on their YouTube channels. We got Natasha Campbell McBride. She won't be there, but she'll be on Zoom. And Mighty Goodson, my good friend from here in Skelmersdale, just who I've known for ages, on all the emotional stuff and unwinding, that sort of thing, and natural movement workshops, breath work, and loads of live music, and cooking amazing meat over fire pits and hanging out round a fire and talking shite like we're supposed to. Right?
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. We'll post all the links for that. So any
Oh yeah,
closing words?
There's camping, and there's also glamping if you need it. So have a look at the link and see what's going on there, because it's great.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. Get connected. So Stephen, have you got any closing words there?
No, I'm visualizing that I'm going to be there at that event, and I'm going to meet these wonderful people, because we're here to come together. We're here to build upon that, bring back that community, which is all about coming together, looking at things that bring us together rather than divides us. So I'm keep sharing this knowledge and having this wonderful platform that we're able to, how blessed we are. We're able to connect with you in this way today, Phil, even though Chris is the organizer of these amazing podcasts. I'm just sat there and I thought, a lot of light bulbs going off in my mind. I'm going to go to the butcher's in a minute. I'm going to get myself some lovely lamb to steaks.
Cool.
So the change is happening now.
I think what is also amazing about these get-togethers and really getting together, it's not just the speakers and meeting those people, but it's wonderful to do that. But seeing somebody that you've seen hundreds of their videos on YouTube or whatever, and then you get to go hang out with them. And I've only been disappointed once by these, people in the carnivore world and the keto world and the biohacking world. They're amazing, but it's the people who actually go there. It's not just the speakers and a whole load of like plebs who come along and don't know anything. Some of the people in the audience, the participants, are just incredibly knowledgeable. The people who I've met and who've become lifetime friends, and everybody who goes there, the amount of people we had rebooked for Spain because they just become such good friends, and a lot of the time, if you get into something like this, you can feel quite alone and isolated. Your doctor's going to tell you you're mad. Your family are going to tell you to have your 5 a day, all of this kind of thing, and you can feel quite isolated, and people can lose confidence. And if you go hang out with these people who are of the same mindset as you or close, it's great, and you make tons of friends, and there's some brilliant people who come along to these things as well. And so it's not just the speakers. I've learned so much from people who have come along to events that I've organized and made incredible friends. And it's like, God, I've got to get them on my podcast. They're amazing, So yeah, it's all about human contact. And that's what they try and talk us out of, eh?
Yeah, 100%.
Put a muzzle on. God.
So yeah, and I'm glad you made that point, Phil, because I was going to touch on that as that you can feel very alone. And I've spoke to people like that the last 5 years, and I said, get connected with people. Yeah. Once you get out there, there's a lot of people who will be on the same thought process.
That think like us, Chris.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest illusions I feel is that we're the minority. We're actually the majority. When you actually talk, I watch things sometimes. It might be on wherever or hear it on the radio, and I think, I don't know anyone who thinks like that. It's nonsense.
Yeah, it is now. It really is, isn't it? And there's a great documentary, actually. Somebody followed us around on the tour that we did last year and the year before. And our friend Steve Jeffries, who's got a great channel. I've got to plug that. It's called Edge of the Matrix on YouTube. And at the moment, he's going out with sandwich boards saying things like, there is no such thing as a transgender child. And we didn't even touch on the whole transgender lunacy that's happening now, which is all part of this evil, getting kids sort of to what they're doing to kids in schools. We won't get onto that. But, he's got a hilarious channel now where he gets, people supporting him and also getting quite abused and stuff. But but on that channel, there's a full episode. I think it's called the Ode to the New World Order. And it's the documentary of the Daz Band. But it's not just me plugging the Daz Band stuff in there, because yes, that's in there and it's quite amusing and it's nice band documentary. But he's really done it well of exactly what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years with the Daz band as the sort of centerpiece. Oh, we're doing this, but loads of footage and loads of amazing interviews and stuff, and exactly what's gone on. And it's well worth watching. It's a fun documentary, actually. It's very cool.
Amazing. I think I've got plenty of names here that I'm looking forward to checking out, because and please check out Phil's channel as well, which we will. He's got lots of talks on there and podcasts. Really, I've been through a range of podcasts in my time, but there's some really good information on there, and really broadens your spectrum of thinking as well, which
Cool.
this episode's done also. So
well, what I'll do is I'll just send through the Substack, a little bio on the Substack and my link tree, because you'll get all the news from the Substack, but there's too many links. I don't want to send you, one of those yards of links, but if you just go to the link tree, you'll find out all the events, courses, all the stuff that we do, all my carnivore and beyond Facebook group. I've got one there with about 20,000 people in it, and so you can see all the sort of healing stories and stuff. But again, like you were saying earlier on, don't listen to anyone. Just try it. Try carnivore for 30 days. Even a vegan diet's not going to kill you in that time. Go for it. Try it, and then come back and tell me I'm mad.
And as we're sort of at the time of recording here, we're coming up to about 1 o'clock, and all I'm thinking of now is getting some meat on the barbecue this afternoon. It's a lovely day, so I'll be putting it into practice. But thanks so much, Phil. It's been amazing speaking to you. I was looking forward to it, and it's not disappointing me one bit. Looking forward to connecting in person very soon as well. And again, maybe our next episode with you will be in person. That would be amazing.
Yeah, great. We'll do it at the festival. Come down at YouTube. It's a great place to do podcasts and stuff, because Steve came out to Spain last year, who did the Daz Band documentary, and he did a lot of filming there. And you can see the talks from Spain. Actually, I've let them out for free. They're on my YouTube channel. All the people who did talks there. There's the Sarah Pugh one. There's all the other people. There's Zofia from Paleo Medicina, and he came to the other one, and he's sort of just recording little interviews with people and stuff. And it's great content. So to chat to these people and put it together. But yeah, I hope you can get there. So it'd be great to give you a hug in person and stuff. So yeah, you go on someone's podcast, you feel you know them now. So yeah, fucking come down, guys,
100%. And yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and please continue to support this podcast, Phil's podcast, and this work, and we'll continue to connect with like-minded souls and share this information where we can. So thank you so much, Phil, once again. Thanks everybody for watching. Until we speak again, I'm going to say goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.